Welcome into our pancreatic cancer podcast fundraiser. We have Brody joining us. How's it going today?
I'm going well. How are you?
Oh, doing well, doing really well. It's starting to get to that nice time of year where it's cool out and the oppressive heat is kind of gone. So I'm kind of enjoying being outside right now. So
it's warm here, but
gotcha. Yeah. So excited to have you on. Excited to chat a little bit. You know, we just kind of randomly met via Instagram a couple days ago, and it's just kind of interesting how quickly it tends to just kind of unfold. And
yeah, it is.
So, how, kind of for anybody that's kind of getting to meet you for the first time, kind of what's your story? What got you into music?
Well, I mean, I started singing when I was like 8 years old. My mum wanted to sing when she was younger, and she didn't get to take any lessons. Her dad let her play the glockenspiel instead. And so she was like, I'm going to let my daughter do some singing lessons. And from there, apparently I was okay. So since then, I've been starting to write when I got to uni and release a little bit. So yeah, it's all really thanks to my mum and I guess my grandpa for not letting her follow her dreams.
Gotcha. And for anyone that hasn't kind of heard your music yet, how would you kind of describe what kind of music do you make?
Usually I describe it as like a bit of folk pop.
Okay.
A lot of like just there's some depressing stuff in there, although I am trying to release some more upbeat stuff in the near future, because that has been one of my things, is that's all a bit slow, but a couple upbeat ones now, so that's really good.
Fair enough. And so when you were kind of going through the process of, you know, learning that music was something that you were passionate about and you were finding out you could play music, you could sing, all that stuff, who are you kind of listening to influentially? Like, who are some of your influences?
The main reason I wanted to sing was two people, Taylor Swift and an Australian artist called Delta Goodrem. She was like the first person that I listened to that wasn't like the Wiggles. And since listening to both of them, I was like, oh, I really want to be able to sing. All I wanted to do was sing Love Story, but my singing teacher would never let me because I was like 9 years old. Sure. And she was like, you've never experienced love. You don't know you couldn't sing that song, which was totally valid. Yeah. But now my influences still Delta Goodrem and Taylor Swift, but also I love Florence and the Machine. And I love Katie Turner, Ethel Cain, those types of people, a lot of alternate music. Alternate music with a story and a big voice is my kind of go-to.
Nice. And how long have you been performing professionally, I guess is the best. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to word that one. How long would you say you've been performing professionally?
Probably, well, I started kind of like writing and performing under my stage name Magdolia in about 2020, which was a terrible time to start doing that. I announced the name and then straight into COVID. So, but I've been performing for a long time, but professionally, I would say 2020, but really probably 2021 because there was no performing really in 2020 at all.
Fair. That's, I mean, I have a love-hate relationship or weird moment in time. Obviously, everything was kind of shut down. I got to work with musicians based out of Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, you know, just like all these cool different places. And so, like, I don't know, it was kind of this weird time, but I completely understand what you're saying when you're starting music right at the beginning of the pandemic, it's like, what do I do? You know?
Yeah. I was like, this is my time. And then the world was like, it's not your time.
Right.
You got to wait. But it did give me time to figure out what I was wanting to do and who I was. So I guess it was okay.
For sure. I was going to ask, like, during that time, were you just kind of focused on writing, or what were you kind of doing during that time?
Well, I was still doing university, and I was actually taking like a songwriting course at that time.
Mm,
So at that point, I was trying to figure out how to write music, and then I was doing that course, which really helped me. So I'm probably lucky I didn't release some of the stuff that I had written just pre 2020 because it wasn't that great.
mm,
And I was able to hone my craft a little bit more, and and kind of focus and really decide what I was going to release rather than just rushing into it. So I guess in that way, um, the pandemic definitely helped me not release anything I'm embarrassed about at this point.
fair enough. Fair enough. And speaking of kind of releasing music, I know you released a single back in May,
Yes.
correct? Where are you kind of at right now? Are you writing, recording, releasing?
So I recorded a bunch of songs at the start of the year,
Hmm.
and I've got a new song coming out on December the 8th, which is much more upbeat than the most recent one. The one I released in May was for Mother's Day,
Hmm.
and I wrote that for my mum, for her mum. So her mum passed away when she was about 13,
Hmm.
and she wrote a letter to her later on as a therapy exercise, and eventually gave that letter to me, I guess just showing it to me for some reason, and I wrote that song basically verbatim from that letter. So it's super depressing. Um, but this one coming out on December 8th is a little bit more upbeat, maybe not like happier, but still a bit more boppy, which is nice.
Nice. You gotta, as a musician, you kind of always have to have that balance, right? Where it's like you've got those emotional, sad songs and they work really well, but you also don't want to pigeonhole yourself into being that sad, depressing musician. You got to release
Yeah. And it's
those
hard when
upbeat.
you're
Yeah,
about to perform and you're like, "Here's a depressing song, and here's another one, and here's another one." Like, no one wants to hear depressing songs in like, you gotta have a bit of variety, so that's been my challenge for this year, and I
yeah,
think I'm achieving it, which is good.
yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting that the song you released in May, you said was for Mother's Day, which is
Yeah.
why we're here. Because my mother passed away from pancreatic cancer in
Mhm.
2021. And so it like when you just said that, I was like, oh, that's very interesting or in
Yeah.
sync to why we're all here.
Yes.
So I will definitely have to go in and take a deeper listen to that
Yeah.
because as we kind of started talking to set this all up, I was going through your music and I was listening to a little bit of everything that you had, and obviously less than 24 hours later, I didn't get a whole lot of opportunity to listen to this stuff super in depth, but you know, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that one, like,
Yeah,
and
well,
just
it was
really,
written, my grandma did pass away from breast cancer,
oh,
and my mum, obviously at 13, and kind of back in the day, there wasn't a lot of mental health,
mm-hmm,
and I know she said that my grandpa said to her, "You'll forget about her, but I'll never forget." So I don't think she had that emotional, um, I guess, support that she needed. So I know that she felt super let down, and I guess abandoned by someone that, and she didn't understand when she was 13, that obviously that wasn't her choice to leave. But
mm-hmm,
so that letter that she wrote was a lot of closure for her. And then I guess for me to write that song, I know she was very emotional about it, and it gave her another sense of closure as well. Um, and it's really hard on Mother's Day to, when you don't have a mother
mm-hmm,
who's around to kind of deal with that day. So yeah, I wanted to release the song at the time for those people.
mm-hmm,
Um, yeah, the cancer thing is, yeah, it was hard for her, I know.
mm-hmm. And I appreciate you sharing this story, and you know it's always hard, but we kind of do things at our own speed to a mentally, physically, emotionally recover, but still keep their memory alive. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of why I decided to do this fundraiser, was just kind of like that last little thing to keep my mother's memory alive. So,
Yeah.
um, so with the song that's coming out in December, what's kind of the story behind this song?
Well, it's funny actually, like, I keep being asked that, and I actually don't remember writing it, to be honest.
Fair.
Like, I have no real recollection of writing it. It just kind of popped up and I wrote it, and then, um, since then I've performed it a few times,
Mhm.
and every time I perform it, someone comes up to me and is like, "I really, really like that song." So I decided to release it, but having looked at the lyrics again and trying to kind of, go back into what I was talking about,
Yeah.
um, it's just about, it's kind of like a bit of a doomed love, really. It's, when you're trying to fight for something, but it's just not working and you're growing apart, and no one's really at fault.
Hmm.
It's called Fault Lines for that reason. And yeah, it's just that kind of stuff happens relationship where no one's really done anything particularly wrong, but it was never going to last anyway. So yeah, it's supposed to be a bit upbeat, but still got that depressing element to it.
I understood completely. So, with all these songs that you recorded at the beginning of the year, was it like always the thought to kind of make it like a singles driven project, or do you have the aspirations of like one day releasing all these as like a full length project?
Yeah, so the intention is next year to do an EP,
Okay.
and hopefully a couple of those will be on there. But at this point, it's just singles because I'm really trying to kind of update my repertoire and make sure that, yeah, it's not all just slow, depressing stuff. That when people go like you to look into my songs, it's not all just like, oh my gosh, it's another
Yeah.
slow song, another piano ballad. So yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And then the only other last little thing that I wanted to talk about, because it was one of the things that grabbed my attention when I first ran across your page, was the okay, we're back. Can you
We're
hear me?
back.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Oh, so one of the things that I really wanted to talk about was the songwriting prize. I saw that. Are you part in the grand
Mhm.
finale for that? Is that?
Yes, I am. It's a very weird, um,
Uh-huh.
story, but basically I applied to be in this competition. I applied last year. I made it to the top 100, which I was pretty happy with. A nice little bit of validation, but I didn't make it any further into the semifinals, which, to be honest, I was like, whatever, I'll just try again next year. And then on the day that they were doing the semifinals, about 3 or 4 hours before, someone was sick and dropped out. And they messaged me and they were like, "You're the next person. Like, if you had it, if that person hadn't have been there, you would have been in the top 10 or whatever.
Oh well.
And would you like to come perform tonight?" And I was not doing anything. I was just sitting
Mhm.
in my bed, to be honest. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I'll come," with zero intention of winning or doing
Mhm.
anything. Like, it was just, I'm going to make up the numbers and I'm gonna have fun and meet some people. Anyway, I went and I ended up winning, and it was a big roller coaster of a day. My mum, like, was like, "What?" in the audience. Everyone then was looking at her like, "You can't believe that she won." Like, no one could believe it. So, yeah, we're going to Sydney this week for the final, and I'm going in with the same vibe of I'm just there for fun. It'll be
Yeah.
really interesting. Again, another time to meet new people. But yeah, it's really exciting. I've never performed outside of Victoria before, so I'm very
Mm.
excited, and it'll be nice to get away a little bit from my regular life. So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see how we go, but it'll be fun.
So what is the like final prize? Is it like cash or recording thing, or like
It's like basically it's sponsored by a whole bunch of different people. So I know that for winning the semi-final, I got like a little microphone thing, which I actually haven't got yet. I have to go to the semi-final to get it. But I think that there's like a music video, some photos stuff, and some mental health first aid, a course in that, which would be really interesting to do, and something that I'd love to do even if I don't win.
For sure, for sure. That's really cool. You know, it's those competitions are always really unique and helpful because you know you think a lot of times it's like, oh, the cash would be great, but when you're an up and coming musician, that anything that helps you promote, like whether it's music videos or photos or even free time in the studio
Yeah.
or you know just the connections are worth so much in and of themselves. So
100%. And I mean, the thing that makes it unique is that it's a mental health songwriting prize.
mm,
So there's a theme, and everyone had to kind of put in a song that
mm,
was relevant to that theme. So everyone's brought in songs that are really deep and beautiful. So whoever wins will be 100% worthy. They're all amazing songs. I've listened to them all. I'm like, okay, I've got some good company.
yeah.
So yeah, it'll be really good and a good message as well.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. And so if anybody wants to check out your music, you know, keep up with you on socials or catch a show like whenever you're playing, where's the best place to find you?
Best place to find music in Magdolia on everything else, Spotify.
You broke up a little bit there at the end.
Oh, just Magdolia Music on Instagram and Magdolia on everything else, Spotify, Apple.
Perfect. 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 Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat. And we'll be back here in just a few minutes.